Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar on taking the pressure off your team with digital technology. I'm Fraser May and I'm the Communications and Advocacy Manager at Civil Contractors New Zealand. With me today we've got a fine selection of presenters to talk to you about some of the advances in digital technology at the moment. So we're going to be online for about an hour now. I know that you're just arriving in the room, so we'll give it a minute or so for people to arrive. But with me today, I have Michelle Farrell, who's Civil Contractors New Zealand's Technical Manager. Hi, Michelle.
Hi,
Kevin
Fraser.
Wall, who's the Managing Director of CheckSafe. Give us a wave, Kevin. Yep. We've got Matt Ensor, who is the founder of Kiora AI. We've got Andy Marsh, who's the Quality and Systems Manager. Did I get that right? Of the Central Interceptor project. How you going, Andy?
That's correct. Yep, for Ghella.
Right. And we've got Jim French joining us all the way from Australia. What city and how hot is it there today, Jim?
In Sydney, it's currently about 32 degrees, heading for a mild 40.
Mild 40. Ouch. Yeah, heading towards an oven temperature there. So we'll hope you can stay cool for the webinar, Jim. Right, great. Thanks everyone. We just wait a few moments for everyone to arrive in the room. As I said before, we're in for about, we'll keep it to an hour. So I hope you can get something out of this lunch session. What I will say as well is there's a little chat window on the right-hand side of the screen there. So if you click the two speech bubbles, then you'll be able to ask our presenters any questions that you have during their presentations. And we'll do our level best to get back to you with answers to those in the Q&A session, which is going to happen at the end of this webinar. So I think we can kick through into the webinar pretty shortly. Once again, feel free to use the chat function on the right-hand side to say hi or to ask us any questions as we're presenting, and we'll do our best to get you the answers that you seek. Okay, let's kick on. So just again, introducing our presenters there in terms of who we've got today. And I'm going to actually lead us off with a few results. So in terms of this webinar, part of the reason we are running this is because each year we run the Civil Contractors New Zealand runs the Construction Industry Survey in collaboration with Teletrac Navman. So that covers off industry trends. It's a bit of a state of the industry, but it also includes a technology section. And we often focus on the work and the meaning and the impact and the relationship with the government and that sort of thing. But this webinar is just a really good chance to drill down more into some of the trends and the technology findings that we've got from that survey. So I thought I'd just take us through quickly. I won't be too long on this, but if you do want to check out the results of the survey itself, you can, and I will drop a link to that survey so that you can download it into the chat function just now. So you can click through to that if you want to read the details. So part of it was really looking at uptake and utilization. So if you look at the stats there, we've trended that over time, and things like health and safety, a lot of contractors using that for health and safety and administration, compliance. But if we get down to productivity and business intelligence and cost management, perhaps less so. So I guess that's one interesting finding there. Obviously, there's a lot of progress in the tech space, so it's no surprise that, in fact, I'm probably surprised that more than 77% of respondents to the survey didn't say that they were, more than 77% didn't say they were going to really look at that increased demand for tech solutions. What are people using at the moment? I'll just skim over that really fast. You look at fleet and asset tracking systems. Yeah, there's lots of that. Machine control and guidance. Yep. Health and safety. But less so in terms of artificial intelligence. So Matt's our speaker on that today. So we'll cover off some of the connection later on. In terms of the benefits, people saw there was a lot of benefit in getting more cost efficiency, productivity, compliance, fuel management, and training. So Kevin's going to speak a bit about that today. And In terms of the relationship between contractors and customers, I think we've trending that over time. We can see there's increasing need because customers are mandating certain technology in order to bid for work, and also contractors are increasingly highlighting technology in their bids to win work. So it's just a bit of an overall bird's eye about where the industry's at and why we're looking at this at the moment. Now I just might pass over to Jim here to take us through some of the details from his perspective, and I might just ask the rest of the presenters to turn their cameras off while Jim's talking, so he's got a bit of space on his slides. Thanks, everyone. As I say, attendees, please feel free to ask any questions as Jim speaks, and take it away, Jim.
Thanks, Fraser. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever is more appropriate. So today I was going to go through GPS tracking, have a look at the industry survey around the use of technology, and a global survey as well, and then to cover alternative fuels and regulatory compliance. From the survey, as Fraser just alluded to, health and safety, was number one, as it should be. Then amongst it is compliance, monitoring and maintenance, measuring utilization, costs, productivity, etc. And they represent quite a high proportion of the uses of technology, including GPS tracking, in our industry. So essentially, looking at the data, there is almost already a regulatory compliance format in place. It's just not been standardized. Now, when I say regulatory, I'm not talking about a government regulation. This is more site and project. So each site, each project can set its own standard, when you get the contractors, subcontractors, and the project owners together. In the UK in 2012, they created CLOCS, which is Construction Logistics Community Safety. And its aim was to set a standard nationally that would be used across infrastructure projects, divided into different types. But it wasn't, it's project specific. Each project adapts CLOCS. So nationally, it's designed to reduce the amount of accidents off the job site. On the job site, the amount of accidents that they found is quite low in comparison to when the trucks start to move off the job site. There's a fourfold increase in the number of incidents. So what they found was that it leads to less incidents around the job site, actually improved productivity, improved logistics, and improved air quality and a reduction in noise. So the system, is rolled out with a view to improving both the project and the neighbours' experiences of it. And I suppose, the membership, they say joining CLOCS demonstrates a commitment to high standards and reducing risk to vulnerable road users and offers a number of valuable benefits to help raise standards. So this is the industry taking control of the industry rather than government imposing control on the industry. Australia has adopted this CLOCS A, which is CLOCS A standard for Australia. And it's been adopted by the major projects that are running here. So all the big JVs have started to adopt CLOCS A as their standard, primarily on the East Coast in New South Wales and Victoria, but it is expected to extend out to the other states. They've broken it out into three different grades: bronze, silver, and gold, each with different requirements based on project size and project location. Having a look at the gold standard, the requirements for gold includes telematics and then a whole bunch of other technologies: electronic stability control, roll stability, emergency braking, and autonomous reverse braking. These create an environment that is very safe, because you've got a lot of, if you like, residual redundant safety systems. So if one fails, you have extra ones as well. And what we're finding is, in conjunction with some of the state regulatory requirements, such as road infrastructure management, in which in Australia, for example, that involves the data from trucks going to Transport for New South Wales. They don't get any information on registration, driver, etc. It's just, it allows them to see the number of trucks that are travelling down particular roads and the weight that they're carrying. The benefit for the contractors, he gets access to all roads, where previously they're restricted. Bridges are not part of that because obviously they have load restraints on them. So this system, Clocks A, is starting to gain traction. It may be something that, New Zealand will eventually look at, because you actually have it already there, essentially, without, naming it. One of the next things that came out from the CCNZ survey was the energy sources that are currently used, and then a view to those that will be used in the future. Interestingly, currently use 49%, but forecasting a drop next year and an increase in hydrogen and biofuels, and the rest stay pretty similar. So this came up in the global survey as well, when they looked at what we're going to do, how are we going to decarbonize or reduce carbon. So majority use ICE, or internal combustion engine. But how do we decide to move from ICE to electric to bio to hybrid? What forms the decision process, and how do we make that decision? A lot of companies just say, well, okay, we've got a bunch of small sedans, we'll convert them to electric, and then find out that they may not have the actual power grid to sustain it, and so the planning has become more important. So from the global survey, what's come from that is that, and there's an expected increase in the number of companies. I think it went up to 66% of them said that they would need to employ consultants around the transition from ICE to one of the alternatives. It's important because, you need data to make these decisions. You can't just look at a fleet and select a bunch of vehicles in the hope that that will help. So the advantage of having GPS tracking in vehicles is that you have the data to show that the routes, the distances, and the time taken. And this can be used then to help with studying what the best options are for electric. There's a lot of companies that offer solutions where they'll manage the transition in terms of creating the database around your existing vehicles, looking at the journeys that they take, looking at the vehicle options for different journeys, and then producing a plan based on that data. In companies that had already converted to electric, we found that in most instances they've actually got it wrong, and they've paid too much. So you can retrospectively look at it as well and adjust. So, if you look at the challenges of decarbonising, where do I start? Which electric vehicle is the best for what I'm trying to achieve? Do I have the energy and infrastructure? And how much is it going to cost? And then how do I support the changes? So it's not a simple, let's start transitioning. There's a lot of considerations. And that's where the technology comes in, is providing the data to drive that decision-making process. And I think, as the year progresses, there will be a lot of discussion. Like, as an example, Australia's sales of electric vehicles dropped 25% last quarter. New Zealand, I think it was something similar, in 22%. Does that mean that we're looking at alternatives such as hybrids, etc.? Or is it just, given the time of year, or has something else played into it? The next round of figures will tell us which direction that's going. So I think, when you look at GPS in construction, we're already using it as a regulatory tool. It can be used as part of the challenges around, reducing emissions or, towards net zero. So this technology is actually quite an efficient technology that, I think something like 70% of the industry is already using. I was asked to mention this, 3G shuts down at the end of next year. It's probably getting that towards that time that you speak to your GPS provider. We've had it recently shut down in Australia, and it became a very, very busy period for all the GPS manufacturers as they transitioned from 3G to 4G. And obviously, like any other business, we're trying to, grow the business as well. So leaving it to the last minute may well, sort of lead to delays. So from us, we would appreciate it if you considered it now, looking at the 3G network and how it will have an impact on your fleet in general. That's it from me. Thank you.
Cool, great, thanks, Jim. Yeah, really interesting overview, and I guess you've given us some international standards to look at as well. If anyone's interested in accessing those, I've dropped the links in the chat function there. We're going to come on to the next speaker now, so please take it away, Andy, and we're going to talk about some quality and systems from within a contractor operating within New Zealand. So take it away.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm very much focusing on probably more what to look at before you implement technology rather than specific technologies right now. And I will use some examples as I go along. Just before we get into it, though, so quality management, very exciting subject for most people, particularly on projects. But definition, the act of overseeing all activities and tasks that must be accomplished to maintain a desired level of excellence. There's lots of fluffy words, but I think the best way to sum up, certainly from where I sit, is to deliver what's agreed to time and cost is probably the best definition from a project point of view at the moment, based on what we've been seeing in the last 5 years. So it's really important that when we're really looking to improve and establish data and technology, that we really think about what we want a successful outcome to look like. What's important? Planning. It's the critical step. So first of all, you need to understand your own needs. What's your strategy? Are you going to grow? Are you going to diversify? What do you need to comply with legally? So, and how your policies feed into that. Employee engagement, and workforce planning. Who's going to be using what you're going to implement, and how is it going to be used, and what do they think is massively important. Accreditation certificates, so particularly if you're ISO accredited, how does it feed into that? And then also around strategy is probably the size of the projects you're going to be working on as well. Smaller projects generally require less complex software and processes. Secondly, and just as important, is understanding your customer needs. So what's important to your customer? We all get contracts, we all get specifications and standards that we have to get through. But what is actually important to them? What do they want to know? What do they want to see? Okay. I think we get quite caught up in volume of data rather than what's important. Once you've understood all that, what does a successful outcome look like? Now, as important as it is to forward plan, backward planning is just as important. What does a successful outcome look like, and can we get it in place before we get going? And then ultimately, communication. Everyone needs to understand what the plan is, the direction you're going, and how they feed into it. Okay. So before technology, need to identify and agree key processes and procedures, and generally I find documenting these and on paper it's easy to change, easy to implement from there. All your documentation you're going to be using, so your forms, templates, checklists, all that sort of stuff, really nail them down, so it's as easy as possible to put into whatever technology you're looking at. Organizational roles and responsibilities, again, this into the competency skill set, and actually who's going to be using it is massively important. If people can't use it or they don't want to use it, then it's never going to be successful for your business. Once you've done all the above, then there's some simple lessons learned from my point of view. When you're considering platforms, make sure they're flexible. So back in the day, you used to buy software off a shelf and it's the only thing you could use. And we're seeing more and more now that softwares out there are providing open APIs, so you can actually plug other bits of software in there. We're looking at something from Innate at the moment on our document management, really around that main reason is that we want to be able to plug other things into it and have a larger scope. I think we need to understand as well, as you grow or for different requirements, there rarely is one piece of software that can do everything you want in one place. or if there is, it becomes very expensive. So just take that into consideration. The more interactive the software is, the better. So this is around accessing live data. Okay, so if you can get in there and you've got live reporting, or you can upload information on the go, then that's a really good place to be. I think historically we've relied on uploading registers, PDFs, things like that, and then that's that point in time, and then you have to wait until the next to look at what you're doing. Make sure you understand full implementation and running costs. The benefit probably needs to outweigh the cost of implementation. So when we're looking at that, what savings are you going to make over 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Okay. I think everyone looks at the upfront cost and generally gets a bit scared without considering that in a later date. And just a reminder, software will only do what you tell it to do. So it won't solve all your problems if you're not putting good data in. So good data in equals good data out. They only do as you tell them. And so use of data, like I say, I think as we evolve, particularly in construction, we're catching up. There is a vast amount of data that we can access and that we can use. And it's really important that we use it to our benefit. Okay, so not using data for data's sake, okay, because it can be very overwhelming. So good quality data allows you to understand the performance of your business. Very important. Okay, so because once you understand that, we can identify improvement areas and make sound decisions. It really should support the direction you go and the decisions you make. If you don't really understand what you're looking at and can't use it, then it's not good quality data. I was actually asked just to focus in on something on that. So I'd look at some NCRs and how they can be used. And I'm sure lots of us really enjoy receiving an NCR. Not. Right then. So NCRs can be used in 2 ways. Okay. And I've just made it nice and simple, bad and good. So bad way, aligned with punishment. So retentions, fines, encourages closed behaviours and issues further down the line. Good, drives continuous improvement, open communication and strong decision making. As part of that good, obviously we want to identify root cause, look at trends, understand exactly what's going on around the place. Okay. Is it a process issue, a people issue, a system issue, that sort of stuff. It'll also allow you to understand where you've got more problems, okay, and align them. So it could be a more complex site, a bigger site, small site, and you can really hone in on those details. And then how we manage outcomes. So this is assigning actions, understanding why we're using them. So on Essential Interceptor right now, you'll see that final bit of NCR by disposition. We have a lot of concessions, a lot of NAs. And the reason we have that is because we actually use the NCR process to work around things that we can't actually comply with in our specifications. And because things have changed, things have evolved. So rather than our client updating roughly 190 specs, we actually use the NCR process to get around that. It's because we can't comply, but actually we get concession, which then means we can really hone in on that blue part, which is rework and how we use that. Now, that's quite a proactive way of using non-conformances because we shouldn't be scared of them. They should be used as a tool of improvement and encourage open communication and strong decision making. So data transfer. Okay, so once we've got the technology, how can we transfer that data? Now, it depends what's important to your business as well. So we currently use Aconex on our contract, which is very good for correspondence, so mails and things like that. Quite old school for documentation, so PDFs can't really update live in there, things like that. Okay, but data transfer to our stakeholders, in particular asset owners, clients, is massively important for all of us. Okay, so the data we transfer must be useful and easy to analyze for everyone. Okay, stops the questions, really creates a strong understanding, should meet expectations, and most importantly for us, and something that I've learned in many years of my career so far, the data we provide and the way we provide it really does build and maintain trust and credibility. We're moving more and more to shared softwares. So certainly on Central Interceptor, we allow our client access into our system so they can go in and have a look at the data themselves. It really does stop a lot of problems, and it's really good, particularly in the tunneling data. We've got A-Connect, we've got some other stuff as well. And we really find it's open and it maintains that trust and credibility we've managed to build over the last 2 or 3 years. So just circling back to the planning stage and reflecting on that, okay, because it really is the most important thing. Need to understand what is important and why up front. We're only human. At the end of the day, we will do what we're told to do, but we really do like to understand why we need to do this stuff. Agree what systems and templates are to be used and agree them early. Even on our project, we're going through a Section 1 handover right now. And there's still some discussion around a couple of systems and templates. It causes some bottlenecks and it causes additional work. We create that expectation up front and agree those templates and what systems to be used. It makes life so much easier and gives you such an easier result at the end. And then finally, we all need to be open to change. Priorities do change, expectations change, budgets change. I mean, look at the COVID pandemic we had. Changed a lot of focus and priorities over the time, and we really need to be open to that change. So that's it for me. Happy to take any questions. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Hey, great. Thanks for that, Andy. Look, I think, if any questions about that, feel free to put it in the chat function. We'll have a bit of a group chat about that afterwards. I guess my takeaways, you've got tools there, but they're only as good as, what you're planning to use them for. There's a bit of a learning curve and making sure that people are going to use them in the way that they're intended, and also some of that client interface stuff. I can see that being really useful. So get those questions coming for Andy about how that fits in or specific implementations, that sort of thing. And move on to our next speaker. That's Kevin Wall from CheckSafe, who's going to talk a little bit about training, compliance, and actually bringing technology to your people and staff. Take it away, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Fraser. Good morning, everyone. Just some pretty high-level slides for me in my presentation. We're all faced with the challenge of keeping our people safe, at the same time meeting the ongoing needs of compliance. So if we look at how we've traditionally assessed competency in the workplace, we'd all agree it's traditionally been a snapshot of job requirements at a specific point in time, single task focus based on a role description. We've had a tendency to use generic assessments that are not always closely aligned with job-specific tasks. So I guess by that I mean, we've had a lot of paper-based assessments. We've had a disproportionate amount of classroom assessments and classroom training that may not necessarily be task-based. And we've probably had a disjoint in terms of our qualifications as they relate to some of our on-job competency requirements. And finally, compliance has certainly driven assessment practices in the past. There's certainly an element of tick box assessments still existing out in the industry. So what are the current changes in the assessment environment? Obviously, there's very rapid technological advances. We talk about AI, which Matt's going to talk about, mobile technology, e-learning, micro-learning. There's been an increased focus on job and business flexibility. Businesses need to remain competitive, so they need to be a lot more agile. There's been an increase in the complexity of job tasks. More often than not, employees will have more than one role, where in the past they may have just had one role. There's been a growing importance of soft skills, an employee-centric approach. So what I mean by that is it's not just about doing your job, it's about leadership, it's about communication, it's about working in a team, and how do those soft skills support the ongoing task compliance. A lot more focus on robust performance management systems. Okay, so generally organisations will want to build competency and training into a wider performance management system. And of course, there's greater workplace safety accountability. PCBUs, directors' liabilities have certainly driven a lot more accountability in workplace safety. So some of the current challenges in assessing competency in today's workplace environment are complex and changing work environments. You know, modern roles are becoming more a mix of technical, cognitive, and interpersonal skills. So that certainly makes the work environment a lot more complex. There's always been subjectivity and broad brush nature of its standard assessments. So we've got, you know, your traditional unit standard assessments. We've also got personal bias. We've got single assessor evaluations, and we've also got standard assessments, which are generally not always fit for purpose. Another challenge is integration of future workforce needs. It's not enough to just identify and measure skills for now, but we want to be measuring critical skills for future proofing an organisation. Another challenge is that compliance is still a major driver of training and assessment. Okay. And lastly, that resource and training constraints. Everyone's time poor. The requirements around inductions, documentation, assessments, implementing comprehensive competency evaluations, including peer reviews, can be very resource intensive and often require a significant amount of time and expertise to implement. So what does a modern approach to measuring competency look like? It's certainly an expectation there's a broader perspective. So competency models need to emphasise transferable skills, soft skills, and certainly a wider range of skills. There needs to be a greater frequency of assessments and accountability, and that tends to drive ongoing verification of competency in the workplace. Competency needs to be dynamic and future-orientated. The skills matrix that we all face these days, and traditionally have been on a spreadsheet, for example, they're a lot more dynamic. These models need to focus on skills not needed just for now, but also for future. We need to be integrating a range of diverse assessment methods. So paper-based assessments or classroom assessments aren't enough. We're looking at peer reviews, online assessments, and on-site observations. So what do we need to focus on when we're assessing competence in future? We need to keep it simple, okay? So that means we need to look at on-job assessments of skills, and this is where the new skill standards will hopefully come into play. We need to look at flexible assessment models with diverse evaluation methods such as self-assessments. We ultimately need to leverage off technology, such as AI and digital assessments. The key thing about technology is that it can give you, cloud-based systems can give you consistency, they can give you visibility, they promote accountability across sites, and they give you efficiency because digital assessments allow you to do assessments without paper and on a regular basis. So we need real-time work-based assessments and ongoing job verification of competency. We need consistency and we need consistent competency management frameworks, be that across a business or across industry. Okay, we need to know what good looks like. We need a high level of transparency and accountability and access to real-time data. And not forgetting, we need to focus on people, not compliance. The industry knows best about what good looks like and how to keep the people safe. So that's it from me. Any questions, welcome.
Yeah, great. We're getting a couple of comments through there, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for taking us through that. And I think it's interesting to see your system. I've seen a few different systems out there for measuring who can operate on what piece of equipment in which terrain. And so yeah, if you've got any questions for Kevin as someone that's operating CheckSafe as a system to measure competency and kind of build in, how people develop their capability, put them in. I think the only comment we've got so far is that this system, I think from John Stamps, who says the system looks brilliant. So that's probably some good feedback for you, Kevin. But yeah, if we've got any questions about what it can do and kind of how that stuff's building in, then feel free to drop them in the chat and we can have a bit of a Q&A after that. But next up, we've got another speaker who's Matt Ensor from Kiora AI, and he's going to share his presentation now so that we can go through that and hear about how AI is going to change the world. Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for that. I've only got a few minutes, so I thought I'd just cover the things that are probably, top of mind for me at the moment in the construction sector. So you can see what I'm going to cover on the screen there. I often get invitations to events which are, AI in construction or AI in something or other. And I think, oh, brilliant. They've nailed it. They've embedded it. And I go along and it's not AI at all. It's just digitalization. So I thought it's useful to explain the difference between what I'd call automation and digitalization and AI, because in reality, you don't really have to worry too much about AI right now. I'm going to tell you what's coming in 2025. So there's things that are coming that will be hopefully quite practical, but for the moment, it is a little bit fringe. So this is how I see digitalization. All of those things should be familiar to you. Artificial intelligence, and I'm talking here about generative AI. Nothing's ever 100% assured. It will give you different answers at different times. And so that some people think that's a fatal flaw, but that's not true at all. What it means is it's really good at suggestions, recommendations. It's used as a tool for a human to then decide what to do. It can give much more information than perhaps an individual will be able to gather. It can suggest decisions on things that have never happened before. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Basically, we're now at what we call the omni stage of AI, which means you can put anything in. You can put photos, handwritten notes, audio files, you name it. It used to be very limited. Now you can hold up your phone and point it in something and say, hey, what's this? And finally, what we're finding is the most useful role of generative AI is in review. So it's not so great at generating stuff, but it's really good at reviewing stuff. It's really good at cross-referencing. So if you have 1,000 different plans on your job and 50 different standards and 3 different regulations you've got to follow, AI can nail that, no problem. And yes, that exceptional specialist knowledge I just talked about. So artificial intelligence will sit alongside digitalization, things that are happening. Here's a thing I just got off the internet just to show you how good it is. I don't really know what it was. So I said, can you please write a summary of this? And so what it's done is it's given me a summary of that survey form. And you can see it's pretty unstructured. And I can build right through to a insurance policy for that boat based on AI drawing that information out. Here's another one. This is a video. I'll press play in just a second. So this is a guy out, or it might have been a lady, I don't know, out on a construction site with their phone, and they've just walked around. And I can't remember the particular question they asked, but it was something about, health and safety, or how can we improve efficiency on this site? So what you can see on the left, the AI is looking at it, and it's kind of going, oh, that's interesting. Have a look at that. Yep, got that. Now, we've abbreviated this video a lot. This technology will come out in January. It's been promised for a while, but OpenAI have promised that it'll come out in January. So what it does now is it goes into your spreadsheet itself. This is the AI doing this, not a person, and it types in all the things it found. So there might have been health and safety issues, or it might have been improvement suggestions, or whatever. So again, that's 2025. Don't get too worried. You can't really do it. Can't really do it at the moment. Right. So Yeah, interesting. So the AI vendors are trying to solve all the problems that people have. So one is it can't do maths very well. Next year it'll be able to do perfect maths. So it's going to use coding to do that. They're releasing agentic AI. Some vendors have done that this month. The rest are early 2025. What this means is it's much more like a human. So it doesn't just give you an answer. It'll actually work out what it needs to do, all the 10 different steps, and that will ask different AIs to do different things. So you might have an AI that's really good at ringing up on the phone and, I don't know, hassling a contractor or something. Just joking. But what that AI will do is it'll use those different agents. So it might come back to you in a week with the answer on optimizing something or something like that. Microsoft Copilot has always been rubbish until in about 3 days' time, I think, when they're releasing the next version. So they've finally sorted out some really useful things rather than what it was before. I've always said that Copilot will grow over the years. If you want to find more stuff about that, just look up Ignite, which is Microsoft's conference last week where they explained all those different things. One of my mantras is in 2024, get on the phone, but in 2025, get Gen AI on your phone. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out, which means you'll have access to some pretty cool capabilities using, just your camera or your phone or those sort of things. So to finish off, pass on my hello from Engineering New Zealand. I'm their trainer in generative AI. And so what they're doing is they're running 1-hour webinars, and this is for people just to catch up with what's going on in generative AI. So it just gets them up to where they are. We find a lot of organizations are about to do their strategy for next year, and no one knows a thing about AI. So we run a 2-hour workshop. We just go in and explain. It's a bit like the 1-hour webinar, but then a 1-hour kind of strategy discussion. And then I run these full-day in-person courses. And what they have to do, they're for individuals, is really so they come in not knowing much about AI. At the end of the day, they have this confidence to know what to do, how to do it, and they've worked out how to do it. And for me, it's not so much about their organization, but it's about their career. Kind of unlocks that thing. Finally, people say, as an organization, what do we do about this AI? And what I say is don't panic. Honestly, you could do nothing for 6 weeks, 2 months, and it really won't make much difference. But the time is coming when it will. So the good organizations are getting started now. They work out, it's called the DUE model. So where in your organization is their data, expertise, and workflow? They bring the management team up to an equal level of understanding. So you can't make decisions if half of the management team still think it doesn't know how many R's there are in strawberry. Work out what tools to approve for use. This is a key finding. The organizations that are doing well actually say, right, people, you can use this tool and don't worry, just do what you like on it. And then they pilot. And then there's the fourth thing that successful organizations are doing is training, because as I say, there's no instruction manual for generative AI. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions beyond this, that's my website there.
Brilliant. Hey, thanks, Matt. That's so interesting. Even just looking at like a jerky, grainy video that AI can then clip photos from, and then analyze the health and the safety risks on site in super speed. Just hopefully gives people a bit of an idea.
Yeah, programming as well. Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
No, cool. That's really interesting little fly through. So keep those questions coming for Matt there, I think, and we're just going to do a little bit of plug for our own. So there's some questions coming through about that, and definitely keep them coming about AI, whether it's security concerns, whether it's usage, whether it's clients accepting them in specifications, whatever it is. I think that's really interesting discussion to have. So we will have that discussion, but first Michelle is just going to take us through a little app that she's been working on, and some of the stuff that she's working on for CCNZ members. Please go through that now, Michelle.
Great, thanks, Fraser. First of all, just want to say thank you so much to the presenters, and I have a bunch of questions to ask, but please keep them coming through. We're aware that there hasn't been a lot of work this year, but there is a big influx of work coming in the infrastructure world in New Zealand over the coming years. So just how can we get ourselves ready for that? How can we get ourselves ready for different client requirements? How can we be more efficient in tendering? Also, there's changes in, well, not so much changes, but I guess, you know, the importance of health and safety. There's potentially a reform in the Health and Safety at Work Act, and TTM, Temporary Traffic Management, has some changes underway at the moment. So tried to sort of highlight a few of these things with the presenters or the presentations that we've had, but also just thinking about we've got a younger generation coming through. How do we retain and attract people to our industry? Technology is really important. This younger generation grew up with digital technology, so we need to keep on top of it, keep up with them. Also, how do we keep in front of international players coming into the market, potentially with the workload coming? So there's a few different things that we've sort of touched on. Happy to address some of those questions from the floor. But just going into what we offer at CCNZ. So it's an app that I developed. Basically, there was a gap in Scope 3 emissions being reported to main contractors so that they could report to clients. We're seeing this coming through in tenders. The requirement to record your carbon emissions. When I had a look at the spreadsheets and the information that was available, I wasn't surprised that it's been hard to get subcontractors, the likes of cartage companies, or sort of even one-man bands on site with their diggers and trucks. So I thought I'd just make something that was super easy. It's just a simple tool for members. It's free to all members. If you can't access it, just get in touch with Fraser or myself, or through anyone at CCNZ. We can just tick the right box in the background of your profile. The information is stored just in your own user profile, so it's not shared. So there's not that sort of privacy data sharing concerns. And I kept it really simple. So I know there's potential for growth on it, but just was a fix to a problem at the time. So I'll just quickly take you through it. Let's grab that. So this is our website, and if you're a member and logged in like I am here, this is what you would be doing. So it's accessible through the initiatives, the initiative section. It's called Tracker. Let's just go down to the, maybe that's not going to work. Sorry, guys. We did think that might happen.
Yeah, just a few questions coming through.
It's,
oh, here we go.
Oh, good. So yes, here we go. Going through, this is what it looks like. No, that's not going to work. It's taking, you can add in projects, so project by project. So you add in your site. So the idea is that you can slice and dice according to sites. You can also, that'll be catching up with me. So there's the projects, you add a project in. I don't in this example, but you can just add sites. How you do this, up to you. It's using the MFE emissions factors from 2023. I still need to update it to 24, but they were much the same. You can also add in, you could load in all of your plant for that company or that site, or you might just want to do a generic mobile plant for a site so that you don't have to skin it for every single plant if you just want to know how much fuel is going to that site in a certain period. We split it by class, so light fleet, heavy fleet. I've chosen heavy fleet here, and fuel type. And then there's some optional information that can be loaded against the plant, vehicle age, your your gross vehicle mass or tear weight, which comes into play with the heavies, engine size if you want, and that's just recorded, so perhaps we can use it in the future. We might put machine hours in there as well, as that's been a request. And then you go to usage. So this is, I've preloaded it. So basically, perhaps at the end of the month, you're loading up your usage against that site or against that plant, or however you are taking your data in. It could be fuel docket or e-roads. There's many ways that you get it. So you apply it to a project and to a piece of plant, or like I said, it could be, you could group the plant together. And then it has a period that you are reporting against. And then also, so I've chosen here site B, I would have, and then we go down to the transport category below there. So the ones with stars are the information that you have to put in. Other stuff is optional and will just be recorded against your profile. And then with what we can do is we can, if you were to choose, wanted to group it as carting of waste or carting of material importing, or perhaps working, travel for work, commercial like freight to the site, that sort of thing, it all can be put in here. So that's the transport category there, and that changes depending on the class. And then I have definitely tried to keep it to just fuel use, because that's much, fuel burn is a clear correlation with the carbon emissions. Actually, this is just to say it's a carbon dioxide equivalent. So kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent is what we're getting out of there. So yeah, trying to keep it to litres if possible, but often we're working with kilometres. That's how you're recording it. So, but then sometimes efficiency comes into that. Idle times can be a bit of a problem, loads, that sort of thing. So keeping it as close to litres as I could was what the intention was here. For long haul vehicles, the emission, this is just the one trick. For long haul vehicles, the emissions factor is assuming you're carting both directions full, and often we're just carting in one direction full and empty the other way. So that was why I halved the tonnage in that example. And then once you have done that, I'm not sure if this will catch up, but once you've created your usage and loaded that all in, you can then go and report on it. It will export an Excel file, which you can manipulate however you like. There's been questions about certification and loading dockets against it, but I've steered away from that just at the moment, just because of privacy sort of concerns, data sharing. We can look into that in the future, but it's not available at the moment. Needs a whole another system. And then you just get your report. So however you like to do it, where you put your boundaries, how you make sure you're not doubling up, that sort of thing. I'm unable to help with that part of it, this tool. Like I say, it's just a super simple tool for contractors to record their scope 3 emissions. If you've got any questions, we've got a few people trialing it, a few companies trialing it at the moment. So they seem to be enjoying it, and I'd be quite keen to put together some sort of working group to help with providing support for people coming on. So yeah, about that. And I think that's about all I've got. So I'll stop sharing. Sorry about the glitchiness of that. No. And have we got some questions come through?
That's okay. And just to build over, we did have a couple of little questions come through about that. And I think the intent there is not to set the rules around decarbonisation or tell people what it means. Really, it's really just it's a response to make things easy for contractors that are being asked to report on their carbon emissions, and a good solution that we can provide to keep things simple for everyone. So yeah, it's Yeah, still
and just to quickly answer that last question about machine hours, because that's the first thing everyone does ask me. We hopefully by the end of the year we will have an option that you can record your hours. It won't be included in the calculations at this point because it takes a little bit more work, but because you've got to have your fuel efficiency of that vehicle available. But we will provide something so that you can record the machine hours that will come through into the spreadsheet, and then you can use that if you choose. So it's sort of stage 2.
Cool. All right, so we're on to some Q&A. Let's do it. We've got a few, we've got some nice discussion actually happening in the chat at the moment, so feel free to join in on that. Presenters, if I could ask you to switch your videos back on. We've got about, we've got about 5 minutes left, I guess. You know, we might go a little bit longer if we get a slew of questions coming through, but I think it's good to give everyone some of their time back as well. You know, so try and keep the time, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, some great questions there. I guess around, Matt, some of the questions around AI. Should we expect the same level of the new Copilot as we do from ChatGPT? What's your read on that side of things?
Yeah, I've sort of put a comment in there. So Copilot is a subset, if you like, of what the typical generative AI can do. So it's really good if you've got confidential information, but if you don't, the other AIs will probably do a better job.
Yeah, great. And you've got a response in there about reviewing tenders, not creating them or drafting them. Do you want to drill down into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So that's a sort of a misunderstood thing. Is generative AI is not great at generating; it's really good at review, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that. And so I was giving a presentation yesterday, and someone had put together a proposal, and I said, you know, just check the RFP for what the client's after. And work out what questions they'd probably like to ask you. And then I said, okay, can you prepare me a covering letter which anticipates and answers those questions? So it wasn't, and you've still got to check it, right? But it helps, I think, the process in that it makes your, it works for both the client and the tenderer. You're actually getting a higher quality interaction.
Yeah.
There might be people that disagree, though. Let me know.
Oh, look, I mean, I use it sometimes for things, and I find that it sets really decent basic structures, and then you've still got to fill in the gaps and look for the gaps and look for any issues. So, I mean, but you're saying that, you know, this is still progressing pretty darn fast in 2025. So that's interesting to know. And also, you've given us some good points to look out for in that presentation too. I guess, you had a couple of questions, Michelle, that you wanted to ask and things you wanted to talk about? You want to leave it away from here?
Caroline has a hand up as well.
Have we responded? Yeah, Caroline had a question there. Do you want to read that out, Fraser?
Yep. So lots of CCNZ members asking about preparing tender responses. I mean, I think we've kind of gone through that, haven't we? AI sourced, right? So seeing tender responses that are clearly AI sourced and almost identical, and those are going to the bottom of the pile. Yeah, that's kind of what it says there. I guess Matt kind of talked about that a little bit in terms of responding to tenders.
I guess you're always going to have poor behaviour in tendering. What we're trying to do here is show the tools that are available. How people, choose to use those tools is up to them, but hopefully we start to see some automation. I think the competency tool is a really good way of being able to track things easily without having to think about perhaps, press a button that can bring out your list of competencies, that sort of thing. So I think maybe people are starting to just get used to how to use some of this technology and perhaps poor practices, but hopefully they get better as they go. So try not to cheat or use it in a bad way, but I think there's a huge potential in these tools that are being provided.
Some more interesting feedback from Caroline on that one, which is kind of about the personal touch, almost, identical cover letters that are AI generated because people have asked to do the same thing effectively. And probably not a good look, is it? So,
that's agree.
Yeah. Okay. I guess coming back, I mean, we started off with some international standards as well. So I guess, you know, that one of the good things that it can enable is you to read and understand, or you can get it to summarize a whole bunch of that stuff as well. So, yeah.
I just wanted to address Tony's question. Does the Tracker app allow for carbon footprint of materials? No, it doesn't. It allows for the scope 3 part, the transportation part of that, but not the actual raw materials, I suppose. It could be something in the future, but at the moment it doesn't. I have ideas, perhaps, tracking water usage, electricity usage. Those are things that can be built in now once we get the hang of sort of this basic structure of it.
Yeah, that's right. And there's very much sort of at stage 1 at the moment. So the more feedback and the more people use it and raise those points, the more we can look at how to support members with that. So that's really good. Yeah. Okay. Well, Matt needs to go at 1 p.m. And I think, I think we kind of planned this as an informal lunch session. I think, feel free to reach out to us and ask any further questions. We'll share a bit of a recording of this webinar. And actually, we did run a bit of a discussion panel on AI not so long ago as well. So I think I'll share a link to that in the chat. Feel free to reach out to any of our speakers if you need advice on any of this stuff. And otherwise, thanks very much for joining us. It's 1 p.m. now, so I think it's probably time to let you all go. And thanks once again to our presenters for making the time available and putting some thought into what to present to everyone. And thanks to everyone that attended. We appreciate it. Until next time. Bye, everyone.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Cool.